Hello and welcome to this episode of Timeless Topics. This is part 2 in a 2-part series on the importance of reciprocity, community, and self-awareness. In this episode, we discuss everything from adverse childhood experiences and grief to toddlers and the importance of repair in relationships. We're so excited you're back with us, and let's go ahead and jump back into the conversation.
You're bringing up a really good point, and I think it is interesting, this idea of how do you navigate, talking about trauma-informed care to healthcare professionals who have more than likely their own trauma history, because we know in the literature that the majority of people that go into the helping professions, whether that's nursing, medicine, first responders, policemen, social workers, all of those things, actually have a higher incidence, I guess, is that the right word? Incidence of adverse childhood experiences. And a lot of that early childhood experience is actually what's kind of put them in this path for a variety of really different and interesting reasons. And so maybe, from a nursing education perspective, just kind of focusing on our own discipline here, if in an undergraduate environment, we could really like say, yes, we know this is the reality. And we know that we have many folks coming in that have some more than likely unresolved wounds or unhealed wounds. Then maybe we kind of open that up and set the stage for acknowledging that lived reality. I don't need to know the details. You got a pulse, you started out life as a baby. Odds are you had some, traumatic stuff happen to you, either generationally, individually, collectively, and kind of talk through that. And you know, as anonymous as you can, because again, creating that space of safety and respect is wicked important. But if I approached my nursing career and I realized, I was introduced to that reality, I think, I mean, this is just me, but I think that could have been helpful instead of me, just like plowing down and stuffing as much as I possibly can down because that's my adaptation strategy. That's my coping strategy. Don't cope, just shove, and navigating it. And then, the me that shows up then to everything, not just the patient interactions, but my collegial interactions, my hierarchical, my boss, and all those other, my preceptor, all those interactions. I'm wearing that bag and I don't even know I have it on. And so I think, we have to really start to dismantle the taboo around this and make it more normal, whatever that means, right? Maybe natural is the better word, in a respectful, acknowledging way without any reveal. Do you know what I mean? Like,
It would be a novel idea to think that that is something that we incorporate in education, right? Again, anonymous. I am not a therapist. I am not here to whatever, but you need to do the work before we go forth into this session, right? I think about it when teaching stable. I remember going through the stable educator course and them talking before you get to the emotional part of the course to maybe even ask the question, is there anyone here who would like to share? By all means, you don't have to, but just recognizing that this potentially could be triggering for some people. We're going to discuss things that may be emotional, and I think about it when we do some of our work on diversity, inclusion, labeling, and starting the initial conversation with, we understand that this is heavy and that for some people it may be even more heavy. And so please feel free to step out at any time. Like, don't feel like you have to sit and just bear it, right? And it does make a big difference to feel like you're in a safe place, to be able to say those things that you said in the beginning, Jessi, right? Like, this is heavy. I need to table this. We need to stop this conversation for a second. And I don't think that a lot of people feel that safety,
yeah.
right? Yeah. But I can say that in this tiny circle that we've created, there's that sense of being able to say, I need a second, right? I need to shift. I need to back up just a minute because I'm not okay. And I think if we would give each other that grace to be able to say, I'm not okay, then it would give us a little more understanding when our family members say, I'm not okay, even when they don't say those words,
Yeah.
but they don't make eye contact with you. I'm not okay. Right? Our families who all of a sudden just stop coming. I'm not okay. And what do? We say, they haven't been here in 4 days.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe there's sign of them saying, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Right? The fathers who you have to force them to touch the baby because they're deathly afraid to get attached to that tiny human.
Yeah.
They're saying, I'm not okay. And we're not hearing it. And so when we don't hear it, then they're going to stop saying it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can only say something so many times and nobody hears what you're saying that you're like, I
Well,
don't even know why I'm wasting my breath to say it or my energy. I'm just going to completely shut down and disconnect because I've tried to tell you, I've tried
yeah.
so many times and you didn't hear me.
Bessel van der Kolk actually says trauma is when your reality is not seen or heard.
Mm,
And that's what you made me think of when you were saying that.
Yeah, so much of trauma is around invalidation, right? And just being told that you're wrong, right? I don't see what you see, so therefore you're wrong and I'm right. Rather than understanding that in almost every incident, there is space for two things to be true at once,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes more. And it's okay for you as the healthcare worker to choose to show up every day to the NICU and you love your job. You love what you do. You love your coworkers. You love the paycheck you get. You love the patients you care for, the skill set you have. But I absolutely, as a parent, do not want you to have to use any of those things on my child.
Yeah.
So even though I respect you for what you're doing, I don't want any of this interaction at all. I never wanted this. And it's really a hard pill to swallow as a professional because we're so used to things being, being told about how great we are and we're so amazing and look at what we do and how do you do that to tiny humans and, all of the things we hear. But you have to hold space with that complicated experience of grief that a NICU parent is going through, right? Even just from my point of privilege as a parent in the NICU, I mean, of which that list is long, right? White, married, employed, multiple cars, middle class. I had insurance. I speak English. I have a professional background. Like I could keep going, right? But I still felt completely and totally othered in my unit. And people would be so upset with me when they would go, how are you doing today? And my answer every day would be, well, I'm here because that was the best I could give you. And they're like, really? You're not okay? No, none of this is okay. I don't want any of this. I never wanted any of this. I do it professionally and I do it well professionally, but I never wanted to experience it myself. And it's no shade to you as a provider or a nurse or anybody else. It has nothing to do with you. It just has to do with the fact that I don't want to be here. And it is perfectly okay for me to not be okay.
Yeah.
But for some reason that rubs you wrong.
Yeah.
And that's because you're not comfortable sitting in someone else's discomfort. And that's really what we have to do as healthcare providers because we don't see people at their best. Even happy, normal deliveries in labor and delivery and that kind of concept, they're not always without trauma.
Yeah.
And so we have to hold space for the full spectrum of experience because if not, what are we doing? We're just invalidating people left, right, and center, and we're causing more harm than we're preventing.
I do love when someone is like, are you okay? And you're like, no.
Not
And
even a little
right,
bit.
and if you're passing in the hallway,
Yeah.
they stop and they look at you, right? And for a time, just because I wanted to be a little antagonistic, and I own that. People would ask me, was I okay? And I'd be like, no, there's a ball of anger deep inside my stomach that is just fighting to get out. And they were like, oh. I was like, oh, did you think I was gonna say I was? I'm sorry. I am so sorry that I upset you with the fact that I am not okay. Right? And again,
Right,
I knew in
right.
that particular vein that I was being antagonistic. I know it. It was kind of a little bit of a game.
I have done the same. This is why we're kindred
Yeah,
spirits, my friend. Because I did the same. Like I remember in the NICU once they were like, "Or what's wrong? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Well, this is day 66. I'm really over all of you. I'm tired of paying for parking. I'm tired of eating cold turkey sandwiches in my car while I do therapy. I'm tired of my daughter being here and having to ask permission to interact with her in ways that a normal parent should. I'm tired of not seeing my kids at home. I'm tired of not putting them to bed at night. I'm tired of waking up at 2 in the morning to pump to give you breast milk that you just tell me isn't enough. I'm tired of a lot of things. Do I need to keep going?" And they're like, "No, we're good." I was like, "Okay, cool." Because extrapolate that to any other experience, because that's my experience, but imagine what any other NICU parent is feeling.
exactly.
And that didn't diminish my gratitude for what they did. Like
Mhm.
I was holding space for both, right? But they only wanted me to present in a fond response. They only wanted me to present in a overtly grateful response, when that's just not how Jesse Barnes shows up in the world, right? Like I want to hold people accountable because I want people to hold me accountable. And that is how we get to genuine connection, not this toxic positivity of let's all just glad hand our way through. But like I do think sometimes that's what's missing in some of these discussions is we only want to talk about the like, kind of awe aspect of it without realizing that like there's some grit here too.
Yeah,
And it affects the way that we show up as providers and as people inside the NICU and outside the NICU.
And that in these conversations, there are going to be frank, transparent, not always pretty, right? But if you really want to have circle time and you really want to create this level of trust, respect,
yeah.
safety, you have to do that,
Mhm.
right? And you have to understand that when it's not pretty, at least in the confines of this three, it's not personal, it's not intentional against anyone. It is me saying, I trust you enough to let down my guard and to say, I am angry, I am not okay, I am whatever. And if we can't do that,
Right.
then again, we're kind of lying about everything that we've said.
Yeah.
And so I think for us to demonstrate to everyone else
Yes.
that this is how we're coming at it, right? And this particular day, some of us were not okay. This is my feeling. There are days that I know that I am antagonistic, and I have to own that. I need to be intentional about not doing that because that's not fair to others. But there are just some days, right? We're all human, and yeah, can only try to get better.
But that thing about, being antagonistic too. I mean, I think I think sometimes, you do have to just give voice to your frustration,
Mhm.
and sometimes it may rupture a relationship in a moment, not, but in a moment. And so then, I mean, I find for myself when I let that out sometimes, um, I have to repair then. Now it's like, okay, this was not about you. This was about me. I just had to let some steam off of that little ball that's been, living in my belly for a while. And I appreciate you giving me the space to do that. Um, for families who are in the throes, it really becomes incumbent on us to see the bigger picture and realize that they don't owe me anything. I am here doing the good work that I get paid to do on a regular basis, that is my passion. And I see you, right? I see you're overwhelmed. But that's me. And I unfortunately don't believe everybody operates from that place of expanding awareness. And so kind of coming back to something that we had said earlier, I think we really do need to start encouraging um, undergraduate education. I mean, you know what, even high schools at some point, but let's not get crazy. But, really help. people coming into these professions that are serving that raw edge of humanity in crisis, you have to realize what crisis does, what it does to our psyche, what it does to our soul, what it does to our bodies, and be able to walk that journey with us respectfully, understandingly, and those kinds of things. Because if we keep just reacting, you piss me off, you piss me off. I mean, we're just playing into this this goofy setup that is, put together to keep us separated, keep us apart, keep us fighting amongst each other. Um, when at the very end of the day, I mean, just coming back to what you had said too, it's about community, it's about connection, it's about reciprocity, respectful reciprocity.
You're making me, when Tracy made the comment about a small angry ball in your stomach, it made me think of toddlers. So toddlers are low-key my favorite type of human because they are just like, no, it's in my head and it's out my mouth and you got to figure out what to do with it, right? And like they have no social training, so it's just base level human. And I love it so much because there's so much time as an adult where somebody walks up to me and I just want to be like, no, and walk away. You know what I mean? And like a toddler will do that with their whole chest and be adorable while doing it, you know? And so it's like, there's some truth to that though, because it's also like, okay, that's a self-preservation technique because you're like, not today. I ain't got it in me. I want to talk to you about this. This is my ball. You go find another one, right? And so it's like finding this place of when do we need to pull into ourselves to, kind of protect ourselves, right? And when do we need to go, I mean, I guess you're not terrible and we could maybe share the ball a little bit, but like, I'm going to need some boundaries around this. So it's teaching them how to do that. And that's how I feel about how we mold new graduate and undergraduate people, right? Is saying, I know you want to scream at me like, now I have to learn about feelings and A&P. You want me to learn about the sodium potassium exchange pump and trauma informed care. And I'm like, yes, and you can do it, but I'm going to help you, right?
Right.
And like finding that connection and guiding them through and mentoring them through some really heavy topics that are going to show up no matter what you do. I remember when I was in nursing school, we used to always hear like, no one wants to be a psych nurse, but everyone ends up being a psych nurse because psych is everywhere, right? And you're like, that was a little discriminatory in the way that it was worded. But when you think about it from a trauma informed lens, you're like, but hell, they were right, because trauma is everywhere.
Yeah.
And so once you know how to navigate someone being activated and you know how to, facilitate nervous system down regulation, right? Then you're able to de-escalate conflict and get to the point of healing faster than you are by just telling them, well, you know what, you should be lucky because I won a Daisy Award last year and I'm a really good nurse, so you should just listen to me.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to win anybody. They're going to throw their potatoes, mashed potatoes at you or whatever they have, on hand. One of my last shifts working with adults, literally the lady didn't get syrup for her pancakes, and so she threw her remote at me. And at first I was like, excuse me? Looking back, I was like, that had nothing to do with the syrup, nor the remote, nor me, right? It was the fact that she was stuck on an antepartum unit for weeks on end, trying to keep herself pregnant for as long as she could to get this baby safely in the world. It really had nothing to do with those pancakes or me or anybody. But it took a lot of time to see it like that because it was much easier to just label her as crazy for throwing remotes at people,
Imagine
thank God I wasn't hurt.
training, imagine if she did, get some, or yourself, right? Get some training up front about, I thought you articulated that beautifully, really preparing yourself, right? As healthcare professionals, we need to prepare ourselves to walk into someone else's nightmare. We're punching in and punching out. This is my job, but it's your nightmare. And how do I walk in those hallowed, sacred spaces of your nightmare and be able to see it, respond to it, not react to it, but respond to it. I might be having feelings, but it's not about me. I'm here. It's a service industry, whether you like it or lump it, that's what healthcare is. And but we have to be prepared. We're not. We're learning all these other things that are just as important, but we also need, as you said before, yes, in addition to your A and P and your sodium pump, you need to understand how this all works. You need to understand trauma-informed care.
I've got two thoughts on that. I really love the correlation with a toddler, right? Because I also think about how a toddler sometimes will just sit and scream, right? And there are days that I just want to scream. And I don't think we do that enough. And so it comes out as your patient throwing the remote because she probably just wanted to stand and scream, right? And maybe we should do that more often. Maybe we should just stand around and scream. Not in the NICU because that's not developmentally appropriate. But we go outside and scream, right?
Yeah.
Scream at the sun, whatever, the purple or blue sun, whatever. The other thing I thought when we're kind of going through this conversation is, again, and I'm sure there's literature, and I am not nearly as well versed in this frame of literature, but I'm sure there's literature that talks about how all of this, all of the things that we've talked about intersect to contribute to burnout, right? And if we could bring it back, oops, sorry, to what we are teaching our students, then we're going to affect retention
Yeah.
because we're going to be stopping, hopefully, maybe not stopping, but maybe dampening burnout in the beginning versus waiting until people are now showing us that they're burned out and then trying to help them, right? We're too far gone by then. So if we could start talking about it in the beginning, I know that in some programs they are talking more about mental health and well-being, etc. You know, I've talked about from a fatigue standpoint, making sure that there's healthy conversation about sleep health and sleep hygiene, right? But not only are we affecting retention, but we're affecting recruitment. Because if we are now demonstrating to others that we are healthier mentally and physically, right? Because we know that as nurses, we are not either. A lot of us have both of those issues going on. Is evidenced by how I eat my weight at night to stay awake. It's fine. It's okay, right? Fine. But if we could demonstrate some
Yeah.
of that, then more people are going to be inclined to go into this, right? So again, it takes me back to sounds like a research project. For some PhD prepared person who wants to try to tackle putting something like this out there and then evaluating the subjects who participate in it to see what outcomes you get from it, because it really does sound like a good research project to me. I mean, it's really eye-opening when you think about how it
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
loops back around
Well, and the
into
thing that,
circle time.
oh, I love the circle time. And the thing though that gives you that sense of satisfaction, that thing that fills up your heart and makes you want to come back the next shift. It's not the quick little dopamine hits that you get from being able to pop an IV in or get the PICC line or, do whatever the thing is. It's really about it's the human aspects of the work, right? It's the healing aspects of the work that fill you up and that stick with you. When you can sit and just hold space for someone in a given moment, and watch their brow relax, or maybe watch them be able to actually lean into their emotions and maybe weep, maybe feel safe enough with you that they can put down that boulder that they've been carrying, for, the whole hospital stay. Those are the moments that stick with you. They stick with them and fill you up. We've sliced and diced our work into these tangible metrics that don't transcend the soul, right? They don't transcend the real reason why I went into this work was to help people. And the help that I offer you isn't from an IV, right? That's just the thing. Um, but yeah, again, we morph and we adapt into these systems that are all around these, you know, a myriad of all these small moving parts and these checklists and all this other kind of stuff that I'll check boxes until the cows come home, but it's actually depleting my heart and soul because on those checklists, there's nothing about eased suffering or provided comfort or helped someone feel seen or empowered someone to lean into their role, as a parent or, all of those things. So I think you're really on to something, Trace, for sure. We need to we need to really focus more on those aspects of the work.
Yeah, think of like burnout prevention as like primary self-care, right? And like self-care eventually is self-preservation. And it's embracing this idea, not from an individualistic view, but from a community-based view of caring for self is caring for other, right? Because if I can show up, then I'm able to facilitate something good for you too, right? But if I'm showing up depleted, then I can't do anything for you. We're both just going to suffer, right? Um, I semi-frequently quote the great RuPaul when I do education, and I'll do it here. Is this concept of if you can't love yourself, then like how else are you going to love somebody, right? And I butchered the quote, but he'll forgive me. But it's going through this concept of you have to know yourself and know that you're coming up as close to whole as possible before you can try to put somebody else together. It's just not going to work. And so being able to facilitate self-awareness to be able to identify when you need to say, like we said earlier, like, hey, this is too heavy for me. Like I need to step away, right? And feel safe enough to say that, then allows you to recoup that loss so that then you can walk into the next room or next encounter with a coworker or whatever your next thing is from a little bit safer of a place because you have firmer footing,
Yeah.
um, rather than just running through the hall screaming like our aforementioned toddler. But in the right context, screaming can be a form of like getting it out, right? Like it being able to say, like, I mean, think of just like Daniel Tiger on PBS telling kids, like, it's okay to be angry. You stomp out your anger, right? And they like stomp their little feet, and you're like, right, the energy has to go somewhere. And I'd rather it go through your body into the ground than out at me as your parent or as your friend or somebody, right? And it starts that young, teaching emotional regulation skills that young, so that we have more to work with by the time they're entering the workforce, rather than trying to teach them all that, when their prefrontal cortex is just coming online, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So maybe that's going to be helpful to us in the future, right? It won't
I
be,
hope
it won't
so.
be when I'm here. But but by the time my grandchildren get to the workforce, maybe they will remember some of those things and will be able to say, hey, I'm going to set some boundaries, right? And which kind of goes into a whole different conversation, but I think this actually could be an interesting conversation at some point too about the mentoring and of the various generations, right? Because again, I was not accustomed to that. I am pretty sure that my grandparents never allowed me to just stomp my foot like that, right? But I look at my granddaughter and I was like, oh, you're angry? Oh, that's sweet, right? You be angry, it's okay. Whereas my grandmother would have been like, fix your face, we're not gonna do that, right? And it's like, oh, okay then. Whereas with Ava, I'm like, it's okay, baby, you can cry, right?
Hmm.
And so it is going to eventually make a difference because they will come into this workforce with that sense of, I can be angry. Here's the proper way to be angry, right? Let me get it out of my system. And now we're good. Let's move on. Where
Yeah.
some of those older ones are going to be looking at them like, oh, you okay? You all right? And the younger ones are going to be like, I'm fine now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
tell my
interesting.
kids constantly, like, that's okay. You're allowed to be angry. You still gonna do it, but you're allowed to be mad while you're gonna do it, right?
Right.
Like you have to clean your room. I'm sorry. Like it just has to happen. It's a disaster in here, right? It's a health hazard zone. You have 10 cups over there. Why? Right? I was like, now you can be mad at mommy every single time, every single step you take. You can be angry. That's okay. I can hold space for that. You still gonna put that stuff in the kitchen though,
Yeah.
and it's like not allowing the emotions to keep them from consequence, but adjusting the consequence appropriate to the situation,
Right.
right? And saying, I'm not asking you to put on a face, or like my grandmother would say, oh, that's so ugly, don't act ugly. Like that was the Southern
Yes.
white lady thing, right? Of like, don't be ugly. And I was like, I'm not ugly. I don't, who you calling ugly? I'm mad. That's different. But it was just this idea that because I was upset, that was automatically socially unattractable,
Yeah.
right? Or unattractive.
Yes.
and I needed to fall in line so that everybody would find me to be socially normal, right? But no, like I'm pissed and it's okay. Now I can't hit my brother, but I can be mad and find a positive outlet to get rid of that energy, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That really
Uh,
that's so profound because I think much like yourselves, that's how I learned to be Olympic level, stuffer of emotions, and not process it. So I could keep it together, but there was a big price to be paid for that,
yes.
learning then how do I process it? Because now I've got like 50 plus years of stuff stuffed. And you don't want that coming all out at once. And I also, was almost afraid, to let it out because I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the permission. It wasn't channeled in a way at a young age so that I I actually built those skills early in life. And so that when I see that in someone else, I react. I don't
Mhm.
respond because I've not learned those skills. And so I love that you called that out because that is that is the light for our future, right? Is is helping our young people learn how to navigate these emotional challenges, these emotional realities in ways that are healthy, and build skills out of not only can I now recognize when it's starting to bubble up in me, but I actually can kind of see it in you right now too.
Yeah.
And then I can share what's worked for me, um, instead of keeping a wide berth, right? And isolating you. And when I isolate you and I disconnect you, then that leaves you kind of lost and adrift in those emotional experiences. There's a lot of wisdom, around this idea. I like that.
I've had new grads come up to me and they're just like, do you think that my preceptor might be traumatized? And I was like, so what makes you think that? And she was like, well, because sometimes her reactions just seem like a lot and like they don't match what actually happened. And I was like, oh, okay. And she goes, do you think she knows about the stuff that you teach us about trauma-informed care? Do you think she knows that? And I was like, I don't know if anybody taught her that. And it's like this, but I never try to like stomp it out of them because I want them to
Yes.
be able to be inquisitive about someone else's experience. You're not responsible for someone else's experience nor emotional state, but it's okay to be inquisitive about it and be supportive of it, right? Because she's like, I realized at a certain point that she was going off on me about this way I changed fluids, which don't get me started about changing fluids in the NICU. I could talk about that for hours. But it really wasn't about changing fluids. It was about something else. She was upset about something else. And I finally realized, okay, I just need to like get this over with because we're no longer having the same conversation. And I was like, right. So I try to find that point of like emotional maturity for them because they are of a younger generation, or this particular person was, and sometimes they get the short end of the stick when we talk about about them from the like 3 generation workforce and these Gen Alpha people are blah 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 blah, and you're like, okay, come on, like everybody had something to say about everybody. Lord, I'm a millennial. Lord, we killed every industry you could put us in front of, right? So but it really was just not being comfortable with change and recognizing that societal norms shift over time.
Yeah.
um, and so I try to, when that does pop up, encourage it, but it's hard because it takes a lot of self-awareness for that person and courage for that person to even bring up that question.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and the
Yes.
NICU is a microcosm of our society at large. So those skills that you're teaching these folks within this context are skills that will serve them in so many different settings, right? I mean,
I
that,
mean, I hope so. That's why I think a lot of us do this work, right?
yeah.
It's not to be the smartest person or make the coolest PowerPoints, although Mary makes a mean PowerPoint, y'all. But it's being able to say, like, hey, I made a difference in this interaction for you. And whatever little bit that I could even remotely influence ended up being a net positive for you. And that's how I fulfill my idea of nursing now.
And
I
it makes
might not be at
you
the bedside, you know, putting in IVs, but that's how I nurse now. I nurse my community. and trying to grow and foster and that critical thinking, empathy-based mindset. And I hope it works, right? Because if not, what am I doing? Just yelling into the wind? Like, that's sad. I don't want to have that legacy. I want somebody to say, she helped me learn something, whether it was a technical skill or an interpersonal skill or a self-awareness skill, but something. That's what I'm in this for. And I think we all kind of have some view of that, right? And it's just reconnecting with that why so that you know how to go forward. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Timeless Topics. We welcome your feedback and suggestions, so please reach out. Our handle on all social media platforms is @TimelessTopicsNICU, and our email address is timelesstopicsnicu@gmail.com. See you next time.